Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here with me. Today's topic is teacher agency. I would like to define what is it. But before that, I would like to tell you something about myself. I'm Fayyaz Malik from Al Yamama University. I've been actively teaching ELT courses at different levels, mainly at university level for the last 20 years, starting from National University of Modern Languages in Pakistan. And I'm also busy on some other platforms here. So here we are ready to go. So just as to take a good start, I would like to ask you, how many of you are um, familiar with this term, teacher agency? All right, okay. So we are going to discover that thing. And by the end of this session, you will be able to learn what is teacher agency and how it works for teachers at different levels. So here is the overview of the session. And after that, let's begin with our first point. So uh, before we go to the definition of teacher agency, let's see what happened in the past. So in the past, teachers' professional development, teachers' training, teachers' training needs were addressed through kind of different aspects where the teacher was in the middle and all the things worked around the teacher, um, the policy, the curriculum, the overall image of the school. So teachers were expected to enact that. Teachers were expected to practice that curriculum, which was designed by somebody else, and engage with the policy, again, designed by somebody else. And teachers were responsible to keep an overall image of the school, so, or college, or their workplace. So this was a kind of narrow image of teachers' agency. So it was construed, it was understood as an applied force of change. It was a force of change. The concept was that teachers need to be fixed. Teachers need to be changed according to a different reality, which is working only in that institute. And it was applied by somebody else. So, so they were the implementers of someone else's policy. Where schools were seen as deficit in performance and in the need of reform. This was an old concept. The implications were not very positive. The curriculum which was applied, it was prescriptive, based on textbooks, based on some pre-designed ideals. And then we saw a development of these kind of curriculum over last 5 decades, where teachers were expected to apply those curricula, which was prescribed by different institutes, publishers, uh, which left very little, room for teachers' own development with their own ideas, with their own practices. So, and then we saw in the last 5 decades the sweeping pendulum shift in teaching methodology. So sometimes, drama translation method came, and it was thought that, okay, it will solve all the problems of teachers. And then different uh, methodologies were introduced in the market. Uh, each was actually the result of its own time, its own problems. But then with the passage of time, all those methodologies came in and then came out. They were phased out when the time changed, when the reality of schools changed, when the reality of learners changed. So, and then came in 1990s and 2000s, the miraculous force of change that could revolutionize learning. For example, okay, people thought that, okay, computer will change everything. So teachers need to be trained in the use of computer. Then CDs will change the whole practice of teaching and learning. Then internet will change, or mobile phones will change. So, and now we are seeing another another aspect of this kind of miraculous kind of, magical wand that is called AI, and teachers are expected to uh, design their teaching around that, and they are expected to be trained how to use AI. Is it going to be a real change? Is it just, a kind of, for the time being, kind of phase or trend? We will see in coming years. And then came the market industrial push in language education. We saw different publishers coming up with different kinds of courses, which were thought to solve teachers' training problems and teachers in class presence, how they will deal with reading, writing, engagement, motivation, and so on, so on. So some of these things are still going on uh, with a lot of investment in them, with a lot of work and effort going on into them. So look at the positions, teachers' position within these, uh, you know, pressures on them. On one hand, there's national and institutional goals or policies. Then we have textbooks, teaching platform, or technology tools, which decide what teachers need to do in the class. And then there's curriculum and teaching methodologies. How much freedom does the teacher have in the center of all these things, of applying one's own creativity, innovation? You can imagine how much space it leaves for them. So the problem lies that, like, uh, teachers' own training, knowledge, education, and their wealth of skills is underutilized. And then their human capital, their social capital, their social learning, their decision-making power gets diminished over a long period of time when they work within those kind of settings where their particular personal learning needs are not met. As a consequence, their motivation goes down. And who suffers at the end is the students. Now, we are moving towards, like, after 2010, 2012, we are moving towards post-prescriptivism in teachers' training, in teachers' professional development. Why I'm like putting this particular date, 2012, because 2012 was the year when the first seminal book work came out in the market. It was by three writers, Priestley, Viesta and Robinson. They developed their theory completely in 2015, but their first article came out in 2012. So they said that the teachers have the capacity to exercise their discretion and judgment in adapting their instruction and curriculum to meet the needs of their students. So it was they were the agents of change. They had to decide what is their agency to transform their students and their learning and their classrooms. And then we saw a kind of similar ideas coming from Calvert, that the capacity of teachers to act purposefully and constructively to direct their professional growth and to contribute to the growth of their colleagues. This is how the agency was defined earlier. So, and here we got the proper definition from the 2012 article by Priestley and all other researchers. So it's actually quality within educators, a matter of personal capacity to act in response to a stimuli within their pedagogical environment. So their actual class presence and the environment of the class is a stimuli for them to act in their personal capacity, how they can bring a change, how they can improve their own learning of their learners, their students, and their own practices. So it describes an educator who has both the ability and the opportunity to act upon a set of circumstances that present itself within the individual's leadership, curricular, or instructional roles. So The educators draw from acquired knowledge and experience to intercede appropriately and effectively. Acquired knowledge. So it covers everything: the past, the present, and the future. So their personal capacity is their skill and knowledge of the teacher and how they use it in bringing their professional training or uh, professional development. So they draw upon their past experiences and they clarify their own motives, goals, and intentions in teaching. And then uh, they look at their beliefs, and then they connect it with the problems that they can face in future. Maybe the next class, maybe the next term, maybe the next semester. So their professional beliefs in terms of their own teaching philosophy. So they find out possible solutions uh, in answer or in their response to future constraints. And then they look at their values. These are the moral, ideal, and ethical principles which are reflected in their lesson planning and day-to-day classroom management. That is where they apply their own discretion and freedom inside the class in present. So, going back here, it looks like it's a lot. It looks like a lot. Like a lot is going on, like in terms of teachers' responsibility to train themselves. So how they can do that? They have to determine their own willingness to learn and develop further. That is the first step. They need to convince themselves. Teachers need to convince themselves that they need to learn, unlearn, and develop further. And then they need to validate their motivations for professional development. Validating means like they need to see its value. They need to have an action plan to exercise that in terms of practice. So they can participate by participating in the school's professional development structure if there is available, or by proving their own involvement in what and how they learn. When they prove this, then they get into their self-driven professional development. They find their own ways. They find their own ways, like how they want to learn and when they want to learn. And then they have to decide why their own agency is important for learning. Because at this point, this question is going to take them further changes in their own development. So here are some examples of very common types of self-directed, self-initiated professional development or teachers agency. So like teachers action research in the classroom, teachers look at their own teaching, their own problems within a particular group of students. So they pick up an issue and they do it their own, they start researching on that. And the aim is to apply the results in their own class and change their own teaching practice. It's 100% self-directed, teacher-driven activity. Number two, lesson study. Teachers teaching each level, each course, they share their lesson plans with each other. They meet several times in a week and they ask each other's questions, okay, about the objectives of that lesson, what is going to be done, the activities, the outcomes, the time, everything. Student engagement, and out of their mutual discussions, weekly discussions, they come up with a better plan, which is contextualized about their own students and about their own learning. And in this whole process, teachers learn first, and then they transfer their learning to their students. Number third point, teachers can create a kind of community, professional learning community. They can join a group, they can make a group where they share resources, where they learn from each other, they have meetings, and they have some practical outcomes out of those communities. Uh, um, these days, these communities have moved to some of these communities have moved online. We will discuss them in coming slides. Last point here is class observations. A classroom is a teacher's own zone. Teacher is teacher is the leader there, the king there in the classroom. But how to deprivatize it? By inviting another teacher to observe you and then asking for the feedback. This is it's not the kind of class observation which is done by the managers, which is done by the the people who run the programs. It is a teacher's a kind of self-driven desire to develop themselves. So they invite their colleagues to come and observe their own classes. So here we are going to discuss in the next 3 or 4 slides different kinds of frameworks where teachers can actually practice their own agency. So the first framework is teacher's choice. This framework is based on the idea that teachers need to, for example, how institutes, schools, colleges, and universities can benefit from teachers' own repertoire, their own talent, their own devotion, their knowledge, how it can be further explored. So, but it should be based on teachers' own choice, not forced by an outsider. So, big why? The choice is the keyword here because teachers are different from each other. Teachers are different in their careers, ranging from novice teachers to experienced teachers. So their experiences are widely different. So the professional development or the teacher's training should be embedded in their daily schedule, so that every teacher can find a proper time, a proper, or every teacher can every teacher can address an issue which is happening right now there. So they should not be expected to give their free time to programs that are cut off from their context, because it's not going to, usually doesn't help. For example, I go to a conference which does not address my issues, the issues that I'm having right now. So going to these conferences take time, money, and logistics effort, So if as a teacher, I'm going to attend this kind of conference, on one hand, I'm spending my time, which I should have spent on the problems that I am facing right now in my class. So the workplaces or the schools and colleges, what they have to do, they have to embed professional development in the daily schedule, in short bites for teachers so that they can address their own issues. And then ownership. To develop this ownership of their own professional development, teachers need to be an active constructors of their own PD plan. What does it mean? It means that they have to design their own PD plans. They have to tailor their own program according to their own needs. And there is one very good example I will be explaining just in a few minutes. And then it should not be taken as an administrative duty. Professional development taken as a kind of, something which is imposed by an administrator, because it is going to promote a teacher, because it is going to, going to give them a raise in salary or something like that. That in the long term it can work in terms of long-term research, but in dealing with students' day-to-day problems and in dealing with teachers' own understanding during the changing times, the changing circumstances, and the changing realities. For example, technology, the use of new technology, it might not help a lot. So, long-term research, it can work, but in day-to-day realities, it might back off. So on this table, we can see in the two columns, we can see the traditional professional development, framework, and a visionary professional development framework. So again, it summarizes what I have discussed so far. So it moves from fix-it approach to growth-driven approach. Lack of ownership to collective construction of programs, from prescriptive ideas to inquiry-based ideas, one-size-fits-all techniques to tailor-made techniques, fixed and untimely delivery, which are disconnected with the current reality, to timely delivery methods and varied ones, where there is a variety of different problems so that teachers can choose and learn from them. So usually there is no follow-up after a conference or after a PD. But a kind of visionary professional development gives a complete support systems with follow-up meetings, follow-up documentation, follow-up lesson planning, something like that. So from contextualized to context-specific programs, from lack of evaluation to proactive assessment, from child-centered to adult-centered instruction. Adult-centered means the teacher. The teacher is the focus. The teacher is the focus of training, which later the teacher can impart to the students. The second model is teacher empowerment model. The teacher empowerment model works with bridging the gap between what is happening now in my class, for example, and what I should do in an ideal situation. So first of all, in this model, teachers need to be trained to imagine a kind of ideal classroom, an ideal learner, and an ideal outcome of learning. And then that should be contrasted with what is happening now, and find the gap, identify it. Where are the gaps? Where are the learning process is lacking? And how to reach to that ideal situation. So it leads to the formation of some professional learning communities where students where the teachers can discuss these problems. They bring up the real-time issues which they are facing currently, and they can find the contemporary solutions that work. And then it leads to the plan of action and implementation. The leaders in these learning communities, they need to follow through the plan, and they need to see that if the implementation is being done in a proper way. And the last point is very important. The teacher's own empowerment model cannot work without any accountability system. An accountability system is where, after implementing a kind of change in the classroom, the teacher needs to to work like as a person who is accountable, and he or the teacher needs to explain what he did, what happened, how students learn, did it work or not, was the gap between the current reality and that ideal situation where the teacher wants to reach. Was that bridged? Was that paved or not? And up to what level? Like 50%, 60%, or 100%. This accountability can be personal, like the teacher can write a journal, teacher can do some self-reflection, or this accountability can be the part of documented work, like a report. The purpose of which is not punitive, of course, but towards improvement of the teacher's own methodology, the ways of teaching, and ultimately helping out the students.
Excuse me, Mr.
This more.
I just wanted to give you the first reminder. We've got 5 minutes left before we move to the Q&A session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There is one model which works in some places, especially in American Canadian schools. It calls ad camps. Ad camps are user-generated conferences. They actually call it unconference. Why do they do that? Because it is participant-driven conference, and so it's free, it's informal, it's completely contextualized, followed up by precise action plans, by group work, so teachers work in group. So what happens? Teachers teaching in the same institute, they decide to meet up at a certain point during their term or semester, and it's completely informal. So what do they do? They try to find out volunteers who want to speak about any particular issue which currently teachers are facing, and it's maybe common. So sometimes the sessions are not planned until the day of the event. So the teachers come up on the day of the meeting. The teachers come up with their own issues, and then they discuss without going into irrelevant discussions or arrangements or heavy, preparations for that meeting. So it's quite informal, quick kind of thing. So um, volunteers facilitate a conversation, a topic of their own choice. There are no keynote speakers. There are no vendors, no preparations, and but some sessions are planned, which follow particular outlines, and then the conversation which follows that meets the particular needs or the interests of the teachers, which they're facing and who are facing in a particular place and time. On YouTube, there are wonderful videos available about ad camps. You can find them, and when you watch them, you feel that how free it is, how liberating it is. The next model is in-service professional model. Usually, in-service professional models are criticized for one size fits all kind of professional development plan, which doesn't work. It has like how it can work. It can work when educators are given time and space to participate, like not implemented, right? So they're given choices, they are given options. And when the teachers engage in face-to-face discourse with the colleagues, like frequent meetings with their colleagues about their own issues, or about even for the recurring processes which are part of a workplace, for example, exams or assessments or projects, something like that. So it should be face to face, and then it should be based on the needs of the teachers. And then it should be like the leaders of these programs should look for the expertise in required areas, which is called uh, andragogical. Andragogy means that a person who is expert in teaching the adults. So this is the person who is knowledgeable, who is expert in his or her field, and he knows how to teach adults, how to change their behaviors, how to convince them to unlearn and learn new skills. And then like in-service professional development model, if it is designed and applied in a proper way, it can offer several workshop choices with each time slot, and unconference can be one of them. Yeah. Other elements are social network learning, which I started doing, like, for example, 10 years ago, I changed my Facebook page into completely a kind of um, professional training sort of page. So what I did, I started getting rid of uh, the unwanted kind of pages or the things that I didn't need, like about politics or economics or something like that, which took a lot of time earlier from me. So what I did, I started adding people, and I started becoming the part of the groups where I can learn. And there are hundreds and thousands of groups on Twitter, on Facebook, on different social media networks, where teachers actually share books, sources, methodologies, tricks, tips, their stories. Some of them are stories of their failure. Sometimes there are stories of their success. Uh, but these are wonderful places to learn. I have seen people growing in their professional development. Some of them went out of their way just because of those social network learning platforms. They traveled, they met each other, they made new friends, they learned from each other, they taught others. Exactly. And the last one point is teaching portfolios. Teaching portfolio is a teacher's self-driven personal collection of journals, personal thoughts, personal, kind of collection of resources online, in physical form. For example, I know a lot of teachers who have developed extensive kind of Google drives, Google uh, virtual places where they have lesson plans properly divided into subfolders according to levels, and according to different skills: grammar, vocabulary, reading, writing, and critical thinking, uh, question banks. So these teaching portfolios can be one part of teachers' agency, which teachers can develop, maintain, and share with others. Here are some of the resources that I used. Harold Wenglinski's How Teaching Matters is a wonderful, wonderful book. It's actually a report. It's actually a report, but it's a wonderful resource on that.
All right.
And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Fayyaz. Malik, we've got 1 minute for any questions. Does anybody have any questions? You can open your mic or you can write them down in the chat box. All right. We're becoming actually very close to the second keynote speaker. Thank you so much, Mr. Fayyaz. Your presentation was truly insightful and gave me so many ideas about how to tackle work environment and professional growth in the future. Thank you so much for such informative presentation. We are going to leave the breakout rooms now and see you everybody in the
Thank you
main.
so much.
Thank you.